Hey everyone, this is Harg, and I'm here to help. This week we're going to try to do things a little bit differently. I'm trying to do some fancier stuff with my OBS studio, so we'll see how that goes. This is attempt number 3 because, can't get it right the first couple times. Third time's a charm. Um, and we're also not going to talk about any particular technique. We're going to talk about this announcement that came out from the devs of Legendary talking about being able to the update that's coming for Gem Crush 2.0, and it's gonna be interesting. And so I wanted to kind of, I guess, food for thought. Let's start with the announcement. So basically, they did a mea culpa and said, "Hey, people aren't happy with Gem Crush, and it's not what we thought it was going to be when we first designed it. It's not powerful. It's not predictable. It's not stable, and it needs to be fixed up." And basically, what it came down to was math. They weren't factoring in the fact that when they would crush things down, so like in the example that they gave in their announcement, if you have an entire screen of Gen Power Gem 4s and they crush down to Power Gem 7s or 8s or whatever, that that's great, but then it's actually worth less than if you had kept the screen full of 4s, which is disappointing, right? But it's great that they've they own that. They're going to come up with this new alternative. And it was funny that I had actually, when they did the survey a couple weeks ago, I had said that they should do something I was calling a gem splash, which is where if you crush, then you get some gems splash back out onto the screen. They actually went further than that and said, well, we're going to have a counter that goes in the corner and keeps tally of all of the gems that got crushed, and those are going to get added raw to your multiplier. So I thought, all right, well, let's take a look. I did a couple gem crush and I ran them back in slow motion and I kind of analyzed them and said, okay, well, what does that look like? And so I just thought I'd give a couple examples here. If you watch the video that I did earlier on controlling gem crush and making sure that we don't watch out for leakage and making sure that we get the power gem numbers as high as possible, as get some 20s in there and combine those and blah blah blah. So, is that strategy a thing of the past? Is the two color system over? Are we just gonna, are we gonna be able to use native screens? And so I thought, well, let's go ahead and do some analysis of it. So, first off, the first thing that came to my mind is that with this kind of layout, like you see here, this was this last week's event deck. I added in some of the support characters, the ones that just throw gems up on the screen, not even power gems, it's just gems, and they trigger a lot of gem crushes. And so we've not been using them, right? Are those going to have a big comeback? Like, is that going to be a cool thing to do now? So that the video that I just showed there, I went through and analyzed it and said, okay, well, it was a 72x multiplier that hit for 7.54 billion. Now, one of the things to factor in is that in this game there are so many different ways that they tweak the damage that gets done. This boss hits for 1.8 damage when it's powered up, and this boss hits for double damage when it's powered up or for the next 2 turns, or there's an eagle that soars through and does 50% extra damage after the first attack, and whatever else. And so it's actually a little bit messy to try to go through. You can't just say, okay, here's the amount of damage that shows up on the each individual character and then multiply that by 72. That's not how it's done. So what I did is I just cross multiplied. It's crude, it's not accurate, but I also did kind of a conservative version where I dumped the values of the gems in the crush down into the center line, and only had those in the end, as opposed to what their example showed, which was that you would actually get credit for those as well in the save pile. So 72 equals 7.54 billion. So if you cross multiply that, the 72 multiplier in the example I just showed would become a 158 multiplier, which would be a 16.5 billion hit instead of a 7.54. Much bigger number, right? Big numbers are good. That's a good thing to do. So let's look at this other example. This was the deck I actually used for most of this last event that had the water slayers from a few weeks ago that are very handy to for a second color in the deck. And in this example, it was the how big can I make the multipliers? How big can I make the each power gem? And with minimizing the gem crush. So there's only a little bit of gem crush that goes in there. That showed up to be a 146x multiplier. Um, each player, each of the characters hits, and then the results of that look like this. It was 146x, much bigger base multiplier because it's just kind of how the decks are working right now for 19.5 billion, and it's not going to be a good apples to apples because we can't, as soon as the targets versus the heroes that you're using versus whatever. So we're going to kind of use the diff of the results to compare against each other as opposed to the actual damage that I did on those hits. So in this case, it saved 64. So we add that in there and then do the cross multiplication, and a 19.5 billion hit becomes a 28 billion hit, right? Okay, so what does that mean? Great question. Let me pull up the next one. There we go. So the single color hit had an improvement of 218%, right? The mixed deck had an improvement of only 101%, so double. So the single color did triple the damage, the mixed did double the damage. But really, here's going to be the big question for us: is that so we're definitely going to do more damage, and that's going to be good. Bigger numbers, good. But is that going to be something that makes the single color deck more effective than the mixed deck, or just something that's easier to use and still be able to do some damage? Because the thing is that if you're doing the guys that are hitting super big with the mixed decks, and they're three keying bosses for a quadrillion damage, if they're now three king bosses for 2 quadrillion damage, that's going to be better than if you had a single deck that was hitting for 800 billion, but 800 trillion, or however you want to look at it. Triple the damage of a smaller number may not be all that exciting versus double the damage for the big hits we've been doing. And again, this is all pretty theoretical and a little crude because again, cross multiplication and whatnot. But it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm excited to try it. I don't think it's gonna be out this week. I suspect that we'll see it maybe next week. Maybe they'll surprise me. If they do, look for this channel to have some updates because I will spend the week absolutely ripping each thing apart and seeing how it works and figuring out what's better and not. But I guess post your thoughts. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll have. It's going to be better, but is it going to be what we think it's going to be? We'll see. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. Talk to you next time. Thanks.